Our second honoree was nominated by her daughter, Linda Jaffe Sarah Duke, which might be the nicest honor a mother could ever have. But Anne was quick to tell me that this is not her only child. So mother-like, right? A retired teacher, Anne Jaffe continues to connect with young people, speaking to them in person as a first-hand witness and survivor of the Holocaust. She has presented her story and the lessons from it well over 400 times in public and private schools, churches and universities, and throughout our community. Over the years, she has influenced the lives of tens of thousands of people, and I know many of us in this room. Let's turn to her video to learn more about this incredible woman.
Anne is actually one of the kindest and most gentle people I've ever met. I've never heard her speak a word of hatred about anyone, even before she's spoken at hundreds of schools. She's traveled to other states to speak and talk about her experience.
She told the kids. They were on the flatbed truck and they knew where it was going to go, into the forest, and they knew it was a death sentence. And twice her parents were very proactive. Her father glanced at the man who was in charge of growing herbs, and he had offered his help because he knew a lot about it, the importance of that. And he looked over at him and he said, "Couldn't you still use my help?" The second time it saved them was her mother. Someone came up to her and said, "The Nazi commandant wants dresses made for his wife. I was told you're the seamstress in town." Mm-hmm. "Well, you can get off the truck." It had to be the whole family, obviously. And she went to look for her sewing machine. Well, of course, it was gone. Everything in the house had been taken away. Everything. There was nothing in there but bare walls. And she went to the warehouse where her sewing machine had been taken, along with everything else. And as she was getting close, she heard her neighbor say to the man in charge at the warehouse, "I know Eva would want me to have that sewing machine because she was my best friend." Eva walked in and said, "I just heard you call me your best friend. Where were you when I had a baby and they took our cow away? And you never offered us anything." The next day, there was a jug of milk and a loaf of bread at her back door. And I said to Anne, when she told it one time, I could hear the kids hanging on every word because they could identify with that story.
You know, the more we have social media, the more we have digital communication, we start to lose the person on the other end. And I think one of her strong messages is to not lose the other person, to not lose the face, the personality, the individualism, and the humanity of whoever you're interacting with.
We've been trying to get a Holocaust education bill passed for decades. I could tell you, fast forward to 2020, Anne was invited down to the Delaware State Legislature to speak. Her speech just was incredible. At that point, I knew, and a lot of us knew, that bill was going to be passed because of her words.
If you don't have a personal face to that story, it's so much easier just to push it off as some other time. That would never happen now. You know, it takes a really strong, really insightful person to be able to take that sort of trauma and find the hope in it and then be able to share that with others.
Just staying alive and trying to survive through genocide is a form of resistance. So not only has Anne been courageous, passionate, and selfless in sharing her experience over decades, it also is a form of resistance to let people know, you know, you can resist, you know, you need to resist. So she is really a hero, and I'm delighted that she's finally been inducted into the Delaware Women's Hall of Fame.
for your powerful actions to educate people about the Holocaust and so much more. We're happy to have you being inducted today in the Delaware Women's Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
And I'll put this over.
I must confess that some of the shots that I saw here, I never saw them before. Somebody must have given it to you. Good evening, Governor Carney, Mrs. Carney, distinguished guests, family, and friends. I want to thank the committee who chose me to be one of the inductees this year. I have been a recipient of many recognitions in the past. However, this honor feels very special because it comes from my adopted state of Delaware. My family arrived to Delaware in 1975 when the DuPont Company transferred my husband here. The entire community was kind, warm, welcoming. Many people I met were transferees from somewhere else. One of the first people I met was a teacher who would become my dear friend. Barbara Rogers, you saw her there. She encouraged me to share my story with students and invited me to speak in every school in which she taught. I joined the Holocaust Education Committee soon after we arrived to Wilmington. Our job was to educate the younger generation about what happened in Europe in the early 1940s. Our committee wanted our state of Delaware to join the neighboring states of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Maryland in mandating Holocaust education. We wanted to ensure every generation of students would be educated about the Holocaust and other genocides. I must have turned 2 pages at once. One fateful day, I received a phone call from Steve Gunzer, who you also saw there, who was at that time head of our committee. He informed me that we were invited to address the Delaware legislature to plead our case for mandatory Holocaust education in our schools. I was honored to address both houses of our state government at a time in our history when acts of anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial are reminders of our need to be vigilant. I was moved and inspired to see the legislation passed. I felt like the culmination of the more than 450 presentations I have been privileged to make, sharing my story over the years in schools, universities, and churches throughout the great state and beyond. Spreading the understanding what we as a society must do as much as we are able to not allow genocide to happen again. Teaching our children about tolerance and acceptance is one important step to that end. I am grateful to Mississippi State University and Villanova University who recorded my presentation at those institutions so that all may view it now on the internet. I thank my family and friends who are here to share this honor with me. Holocaust education is important to me. I was a teacher and grateful for the opportunities to influence all who are willing to listen with their hearts and minds. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Anne. You are an inspiration to us all.